are beginning our new series about resurrection life. We're going to spend the next few weeks looking at what it means to live in the light of the resurrection. It is one moment in time where Jesus conquers death, and that one moment ripples out across throughout eternity, and nothing is ever going to be the same again. It changes our story from beginning to end, and it has the power to shape who we are and how we live and where we spend eternity. It's all good stuff. And so today, I am going to be looking at how the resurrection of Jesus changes everything. It helps us to recognize God's fingerprints across every chapter of our life. So the resurrection changes how we understand our past. It changes how we inhabit our present, and it changes how we anticipate our future. And we're going to read from the Bible together. So I think a lot of the Bibles are at the back, but if you need one and you're by a pillar, do please hand out the Bibles. And we're going to be turning to page 1061 in your church Bibles, which is Luke chapter 24, if you're reading elsewhere, from verse 13, and it's a story called On the Road to Emmaus. And so what's happening is Jesus has been crucified, he's been buried, and he's risen, but people don't really know about it yet. And so we join the story with some of Jesus' friends, some of his followers who don't yet know that he has risen from the dead. So Luke 24, starting from verse 13. Says, now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, what are you discussing together as you walk along? They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days? What things? He asked. About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the 3rd day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus. He said to them, how foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther. But they urged him strongly, stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over. So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, it is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon. Then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So the resurrection changes how we read the story of our lives. We believe that Jesus rose from the dead. We did that last week. But once the color and the celebration of Easter Sunday begins to cool, it might be that we find ourselves letting our past define us, It might be that our present overwhelms us. And it might be that the future scares us. And the Emmaus Road moment teaches us what it looks like to actually live in resurrection light. The disciples are looking back at the cross and they see failure. But then Jesus meets them and he says that you've read the story all wrong. And the same is so often true for us. So firstly, the resurrection changes how we understand the past. In the dark, we often read our past through the pain that was there. It might be read through regret or disappointment or even confusion. But in resurrection light, we begin to see. We see that God was with me even in the darkness. Because probably lots of us are living under the weight of a false reading of our own story. We spent the last few days on holiday in France, which is very nice. A beautiful part of southern France. There's vineyards for days. And the bird song, if anything, was a little too loud, in my opinion. Turn down the bird song. And we were at home having a lovely chilled out afternoon. The kids were playing beautifully. The baby was snoozing. I think the grandparents were probably also snoozing. And then suddenly we found ourselves in the middle of what I can only describe as le fiasco. One of the dogs had escaped into the road. And whilst that's a drama in itself, it was met with further drama. Next door's chicken had also escaped into the road. Now, goodness knows why the chicken crossed the road. But that unsuspecting old chicken got the shock of its life when it met the dog, who has since been renamed Duke the Chicken Killer. What's worse is he only just nearly killed it and we had to finish it off, so that's even worse. There were feathers absolutely everywhere, a very panicked and mortified mother-in-law and a very proud yet confused retriever. Panic was everywhere. The in-laws were rehearsing the apology in broken French with Google Translate on their phones. The neighbors are going to be absolutely fuming. We've not even met them yet. The holiday is over. We're going to be deported. We can never come back to France. Disaster hath struck. But the next day, when everything had calmed down, it very quickly became a story that we could laugh about. And I imagine we will tell it for years to come. But not only that, it meant that we got to meet the neighbors for the first time, albeit in undesirable circumstances. And turns out they're lovely. And they've got lots of chickens. And also chickens always get got in the countryside. So they were very relaxed about it. And so the turbulence of Le Fiasco actually turned out to be a non-event. Now, some moments when you are in them might feel one way, but then they feel completely different when you're looking back on them. And the Emmaus Road story begins with this same kind of misreading of the story. The friends of Jesus are looking back at the cross and thinking, that is a catastrophe. That is over. That is finished. But the resurrection light changes what the story means. They look back at the cross and read it as disaster. And it might be that we look back on our own lives and see failure or grief or wasted years or closed doors or hurt or seasons where God felt absent. And we conclude, well, that was meaningless. God wasn't there. Nothing good can come from that, or I've ruined too much. But resurrection says that the darkest chapter is never the final interpretation. This matters because healing often begins when Jesus teaches us how to reread our own story. The Old Testament, the first half of the Bible, tells us the story of Israel. Israel are the people of God, the people set apart. And God repeatedly leads them and rescues them and blesses them. And he makes a way for them to be his people and for them to know his voice. And time and time and time again, they moan and they mess up and they wander off when they get distracted by something shiny. It is a roller coaster of, God, we love you and we'll love you forever, and then plummeting down to, well, yeah, you're all right, but also this guy's kind of cool, so we might try that and see how that pans out. And it always pans out as disaster or pain or confusion. And God rescues Israel from a life of slavery as he promised he would. And yet the next day, they've forgotten that because now they're in the desert and they're hungry and they'd like a snack, please. God gives them the 10 commandments, the exact guidance for life to enable them to be in right relationship with him, to enable them to be protected and prospering and righteous. And what do? They lose sight of their God and they build a statue of a cow and they worship that instead. It goes on, and we today have the privilege of being able to look in this book, the Bible, and see all the places where the people that went before us got it wrong, and we still get to see all the ways in which God loved them through it. And this book might as well be my own biography, or your own biography. It is the same story of God's faithfulness met with our failure. It is the same story of his covenant love met with our doubt. We have good days, we have bad days. We have seasons where we trust him and where we run with him, and then there are valleys where we turn away or turn around. The whole story of Israel is people repeatedly misreading what God is doing and yet later seeing his faithfulness all over it. And when we come to know the love of God, it changes us. And it means that when we look back over the story of our life, we can see his fingerprints in every chapter. On the road to Emmaus, Jesus walks his friends back through the scriptures, and he shows them that suffering was not failure. It shows them that Friday on the cross was not the end, and he shows them that what looked like catastrophe was actually redemption. I had an amazing conversation in the run-up to the baptisms last Sunday, and I just wanted to share a bit of a paraphrase of somebody's story. This person said, I didn't believe in God or even really consider that there might be a God because so many bad things had happened to me in my life. There couldn't be a God because those things wouldn't have happened otherwise. But now I know him and I know his love and I know a bit more about who he is and how he works and that he promises he's always been there. Now, when I look back, I still see the bad things, but even more, I can also see his hand in all of them. I don't believe that God caused bad things to happen to me, but I can see now that he protected me when they did. He gave me the strength to keep going, even when I wanted life to be over. I would have ended it all, but he brought me through it when I didn't even know his name yet. I wonder this morning, what part of your past are you still reading from a place of darkness? Maybe it's a regret, or a closed door, or a painful season, or a relationship breakdown. The resurrection helps us reread our story with Jesus at the center. The resurrection changes how we read our past. And secondly, the resurrection changes how we inhabit the present. Verse 15 said, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. Before they recognize him, before they understand anything, before their theology eventually catches up, Jesus is already walking with them on the road. And resurrection life is learning to recognize Jesus on the road that you are already walking. Now, Justin, my lovely husband, has recently run his first 10-kilometer race. Well done, Justin. There's a little picture. There we are, look. This is Justin's trophy shelf. He's got 2 lifetime awards here, so a BAP. There you go, there's his 10K medal. Very good, Justin. And Justin is lucky enough to be surrounded by very experienced runners who are only too happy to give their advice on how he can keep getting better and better. And they tell him that he is running too fast, which sounds like it might backfire. He's running too fast, and he needs to slow down in order to build up the endurance. But Justin doesn't like listening, even when this is the CV of the runner who is advising him. Can you even count those medals? He does know what he's talking about. He does know what he's talking about. Justin finished his 10K race, and he said this. He said, I know my body can do loads more, but my legs just can't keep up. Justin has to choose the slower pace in order to get the long run times. He has got to be patient, which is hard. He has got to put in the time, which is hard. He has got to do the boring part because it is the important part. And sometimes the road that we are walking isn't glamorous. It's about slow faithfulness, pace, endurance, choosing the right rhythm for the long run. And resurrection life is less about sprinting and more about recognizing Jesus in the pace of ordinary life. It is not about waiting for the next mountaintop moment. It is about where Jesus meets you on your road today. And the Emmaus Road story is powerful because the road itself does not change. It is still the same grief that they carry. It is still the same confusion around the story. It's still the same distance they've got to walk. It's the same tired feet doing the walking. The miracle is not that the road changes. It is who is with them on the road. Jesus steps into real human life so that our ordinary roads become places of kingdom encounter. The ordinary becomes extraordinary when we walk it with the risen Jesus Christ. Now, some roads in life are slow roads. The kind where everything feels fragile, or the kind where you don't have the right words to say. The kind in this story where grief sits in the space before anyone has named it yet. And yet often those are the roads where the presence of Jesus feels closest and most powerful. It is not always loud. It is not always dramatic, but it is steady and it is gentle and it is near. Emmaus reminds us that resurrection life does not remove the road. It reveals who walks with us in it. Emmaus tells us that Jesus does some of his deepest work on roads just like that. And I wonder, where is your ordinary Emmaus road right now? And could it be that resurrection life means that Jesus is already there with you? Finally, the resurrection changes how we anticipate the future. Verse 33 said they got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. The hope that they have found changes where they go next. They were headed one way, they encountered Jesus, and they changed direction. It is the same road, it's the same night, it's the same tired bodies, and yet this is the moment where future hope becomes present courage. This is the moment where future hope becomes present courage. Because Jesus is alive. Suffering is not final. Heartbreak is not final. Your worst day is not final. Death is not final. You have a bad day, hope is here, and bigger hope is coming. You have pain in your heart, hope is here with you today, and bigger hope is coming. Someone hurts you, hope is here with you today, and bigger hope is coming. You make a mistake that hurts someone, hope is here, and hope is coming. It does not mean that hard days don't count, or that mistakes don't have an impact, or that heartbreak doesn't hurt. But it does mean that we have been given all that we need in Jesus to stand in the middle of our darkest day and still proclaim that Jesus is Lord, that God is always good, that Yahweh reigns, and that the enemy loses every time. Good Friday is still good because the gain outweighs the pain. It says in Scripture, Christ endured for the joy set before him. The joy set before Jesus' suffering was you. You are the joy set before him in all the suffering of the crucifixion. He endured all the pain of the world so that he could be with you. And so we endure the joy that is set before us. The joy that one day we don't just receive from him, but we get to live with him in fullness for all eternity. Are you anxious about what comes next in your life? Are you exhausted by the road that you're walking today? Are you scared that the pain that you feel might be permanent? Are you carrying a fear that tomorrow might feel even harder than today? Well, Emmaus teaches us that because Jesus is alive, fear no longer gets to decide the direction for your life. Hope does. They thought the story had ended, but Jesus reroutes the road. As Tom Wright puts it, Easter was when hope in person surprised the whole world by coming forward from the future into the present. It's confusing, so I'll read it again. Easter was when hope in person, Jesus, surprised the whole world by coming forward from the future into the present. When you wrestle with it, what that means is that what we see on the Emmaus Road is exactly what happens for our own life. The hope of the future walks straight into the fear of the present and rewrites the meaning of the past. This is resurrection life. And so maybe the question this morning for your notebooks or to take away is, where do you need resurrection light? Is it on the road that's behind you? Or the road that is beneath you? Or the road that is ahead of you? Where do you need resurrection light? I'm going to pray for us, and we're going to have some time to respond.